What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Talkin Football podcast. This is episode 3. This is our first weekly news recap of the off season. I don't know if I said this in the last video, in the salary cap video, but I will be doing weekly news recaps up until when the preseason starts, and then we'll start to get into normal videos about the preseason, who's been good, who hasn't been, and then we'll, kind of go from there. Also, if you guys want to stay up to date, make sure you follow the Talkin Football Pod IG. I just posted the schedule there earlier today, so if you want to stay up to date with when I'm posting and what I'm posting, make sure you check that out. Let's roll the intro. We'll get into the news. All right, so let's get into the news for the past week. Not a lot. Again, it's kind of like the same thing. There's not a lot to go around, but there were a couple of sad news to report, and I don't want to really go super deep into this because it's not really right for me to do that. Vikings rookie Kyrie Jackson, he passed away at the age of 24 this past week. He was a fourth-round pick out of Oregon. He was a transfer from Alabama. I knew the Vikings liked him a lot. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. My prayers go out to his family and his friends and the Vikings organization. It's a terrible thing that happened. I knew of him. I knew that he had. I knew that he was well liked in the organization. I knew they had lots of potential. He maybe would have been a starter this year, and that definitely sets things up differently for the Vikings coming into the preseason. So new secondary players can kind of show like, hey, I can step up, I can fill in this role, and also it asks a question for this team: are they going to how is this going to affect them? That's what I should say. How is this going to affect them going into the new season? Because they're coming off of a season where their expectations were pretty high. This was a team that was expected to kind of not maybe replicate, but have similar results to the 13-4 season just 2 years ago, and they went 6-11 or 7-10, I believe. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts them. Is this going to light a fire in the locker room, or is this going to put the fuse out? And that's what I'm curious to see. I don't know what that's going to be like, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. So Minnesota they're now playing for Kyrie, and they're playing for his dream. So that'll definitely be interesting to see how they respond to this, even in the preseason too. Because there are going to be guys that are going to be like, he was a great teammate, and I want to play for him now. So we might be an extra fuse there. Another piece of sad news that came out just this morning: former Ravens wide receiver Jacoby Jones passes away. That is a typo. Passes away at the age of 40. Really, I was like, I was going through the news and I was like, what do I need to report? And then I saw this. So based on what I know, he died in his sleep. Again, I don't want to go too far into this because it doesn't feel right for me to do that. But it's terrible news for Baltimore. He was a Super Bowl hero back in their 2011 run, when they went all the way to the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco, which is kind of crazy to think about. I know he had a kick return touchdown, which is still one of my favorite clips to watch. It's just surreal how it just happens, how that happened. 109 yards, I believe it was, if I remember off the top of my head. But yeah, sad news for Baltimore. I pray for his family and his friends and the Ravens organization. So yeah, this is news we have to report. Let's get into the happier news. I feel like as a news reporter, I'm kind of obligated to talk about that kind of stuff. But now let's get into the real news. Jamal Adams signs with Tennessee. This is a 1-year deal. It's a veteran minimum with $1.125 guaranteed. He recently played with the Seahawks, and before that, he played with the Jets. What happened to Jamal Adams? I mean, now he's playing with Tennessee. He was really good with the Jets, and he basically said like, "I want out because this team's not good." It makes sense because they weren't good, and they really aren't now, anyways. Um, and they traded him to Seattle. I think they made the playoffs two times with Jamal. Um, I know salary got tight a couple times because of his contract, so that was probably a big reason why they parted ways. Also, major injuries, and also even when he's playing, his production has gone down significantly. He's just not the player he used to be. He's not the sixth overall pick that he was when with the Jets. He's just not that player anymore. And again, like I said, it's probably because of injuries, but let's say he plays in Tennessee, and let's say I'm hoping that he has a full season. That Tennessee secondary is pretty good. I remember I saw a graphic. They added Snead from Kansas City. A lot of people don't remember that they added Snead. That's a massive upgrade. They added Awuzie from the Bengals. That's another big upgrade. And now they just added Jamal Adams to a still a young secondary, but a significantly better. But they are significantly better. Then offensively, you have Will Levis is looking to break out. They added Ridley. They have Hopkins. They added Pollard. They have a good team down there. I'm not saying that this team is going to make like a deep run, but they're not an easy win. I would put it at that. And this addition only confirms that. Only confirms my thoughts there. I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have. I don't know if he's going to play like a money backer type role where he plays linebacker, or if he's going to play safety, or if they're going to have him as a rotation piece. This contract doesn't really tell me what the plan is there, but I would definitely keep an eye on this as we move into the season. Uh, News out of Tampa Bay: Chris Godwin is expected to play more in the slot for them. He'd been an outside receiver the last couple of years. I believe, he was originally a slot receiver with the Bucks, and then Brady came and he basically transitioned to an outside receiver, and Scotty Miller was in the slot for those couple of years, and he kind of just stayed on the outside. But now I believe he's moving back into the slot, and that's where he kind of is best at. He's not a jump ball kind of receiver. He's a silky smooth route running receiver, and those are perfect for the slot. You have Evans on the outside. You don't need another threat. Evans is a threat by himself. You need Godwin in the slot because those are the big matchups. Because those slot corners, they can get toasted sometimes, and I know that as from experience with the Giants. Slot corners aren't usually your best corners. So if you have one of your best, if you have a top receiver in the NFL going up against a not great corner, that's an easy win. That's an easy matchup. So Godwin, I would definitely make sure, if I'm in fantasy, I definitely make sure to try and draft him. Obviously, I wouldn't like to take him in the third round, but I mean, it's good value there. If you want him, I think he's a solid player. So this is definitely interesting that he goes back to the slot. There's not a lot else to like say here. I mean, like it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this translates to the Bucks, if they're going to have more success or less success depending on where Godwin is. Um, so yeah, next thing from Buffalo, Damar Hamlin. He is not a lock to make the Bills roster this year. Now, if you remember last year, or actually 2 years ago, Damar Hamlin basically like, I mean, I don't know the best way to say this, but he basically like almost died on the football on the field against Cincy on Monday night, and what was supposed to be the biggest game of the year to that point. Um, Last year didn't play much, inactive for most of the season. When he was active, he was mostly on special teams. And if I remember right, I don't think he had that big of a role. I mean, he wasn't consistently on it. I would not be surprised if he got cut. I don't think he has. I don't think there's no role that he plays for Buffalo right now. He isn't really a starter. I just don't see a spot in the roster for Damar Hamlin. So I would expect him to get cut, but they may have to keep him. Um, for special teams roles. I know that secondary's thin. They got rid of Poyer, they got rid of Micah Hyde, so there's and Trey White too actually. So that's so they might move on from him. I think they probably will, but that's just me. We'll see in basically like a month from now when they're doing cuts, uh, and that'll be interesting to see if they do that. This was probably the most surprising news of the week coming out from New England that Jalen Polk, rookie receiver out of Washington, he could start the season as the Patriots wide receiver one, and that would really surprise me. Now, I remember doing scouting for the draft, and I remember I like Jalen Polk. I liked him as a second, third round guy. That's where the Patriots got him. And when they drafted him, I was like, yeah, that's a good pick because he fits that system. And now under Gerard Mayo, I believe they're going to kind of continue with like the Belichick way of having kind of like small, slim receivers that are kind of fast, but not blazing fast. But they have enough. But their main thing is route running, and once they beat you with their route, they have enough speed to kind of like just beat you. That's what Edelman was. Not really fast, reliable, great route running, and once he finished his route, he was usually open because he always fooled you, and that was the biggest thing for Brady because he always found him. Same thing with goes for like guys like Danny Amendola, guys like Chris Hogan. Not super fast, but reliable, and the routes are good. That's kind of how I felt about Jalen Polk, and that also goes for how he was in Washington. Not super fast. He's not blazing fast, but if you ran like a low 440, I think it was like a 4.4, like low point fours, I should say. That makes more sense. I think it was a 4.46. I don't know why that number's coming to my head. But so yeah, not super fast, but he kind of made it work, and that's kind of why Washington was so good this year because Penix was usually looking at Odunze, but there were times where he was looking at Polk because Polk is usually open, and that's kind of what I expect to see with the Patriots this year. Now I'm definitely curious to see how his role increases throughout the season. Kind of like, is it going to be something like Jahmyr Gibbs, where he gets nothing and then he slowly gets more, or is he going to have this high rate of action from week one all the way through? That's something I'm definitely curious to see in New England coming into the new season. This Kyle Pitts is expected to play both wide receiver and tight end this season. It's funny. This came out like 10 minutes before I was about to start recording, so I made sure don't want to miss anything. So he's playing both. He's playing receiver and tight end. This is a massive win for Atlanta. I mean, they have not used him well. His rookie season was okay. His last two seasons have not been good, and he's kind of and I we're all waiting for his breakout season. He just hasn't been able to break out. He had 1,000 yards in his rookie year. He had one touchdown. He had like 600 yards a second year, like only a couple touchdowns. He's just not been able to kind of um, increase his workload. And I don't know if that's Arthur Smith or game planning or not getting open. I think it's a mix of everything. I think Arthur Smith had a lot of that in there. I think he used Pitts and he used Bijan last year as a decoy too. London is a decoy. Like he uses all the backups and all these big players. They're all decoys, and that's fine, I guess, to a certain extent. But at some point, you got to get them in. So this is definitely big. Pitts to play both receiver and tight end. He's athletic enough to do so, and it makes complete sense why you'd want to. He can play outside receiver. That would be a matchup nightmare for corners. I mean, you're going to have a really big corner to kind of fight against this. And I don't know if there is a corner in the NFL that is going to be able to keep up with Pitts. And that's something I'm definitely interested to see how this works into the game plan. Or is Atlanta going to use Pitts more as a receiver or a tight end? Because it does both. If I had to guess, I would say he's probably going to be a tight end more. But being a receiver would only help Atlanta and would help Pitts develop his game more. If they use Pitts correctly this year, now I'm not saying like use him in like jet sweeps or use him in like quick pitches. Actually, I think that's actually not allowed anymore because the Chiefs overused it. I'm not saying use Pitts in like jet sweeps because that's so useless. I'm saying like if they can use him in like a slot role or like a go route, like that's easy money right there. And I would definitely um that makes complete sense for Atlanta to do something like that, and especially in a very, very easy division. This is so. Before I get into this, it's July. The off season is insanely dry. Training camp doesn't start for like another week, I don't think. Or like maybe a couple of days. So this is big news in the NFL. Okay, Josh Allen. Let me clarify this. I didn't want to make like this bar too small. This is the Jaguars. Josh Allen. He legally changed his name to Joshua Hines Allen. So now the different. So now that makes it different compared to the quarterback Josh Allen, obviously. So based on what I know, um, reports said that he changed it to Josh Hines Allen to honor his family, especially his sisters. I want to say his uncles who were um, athletes as well. So nice little family connection there. I believe it was first revealed when the Jaguars did media day and they posted about him, and on the back of his jersey it said Hines Allen and not Allen, and everyone's like, oh, okay, he changed it. So then oh, big news. So uh, that will be easier to differentiate now. No more Josh Allen intercepts Josh Allen. I remember I think it was 2 years ago when Josh Allen intercepted Josh Allen, or he sacked Josh Allen. Actually, I think he did all three. I think he sacked him, forced a fumble, and he intercepted him. I don't know why I remember that, but that was very, very funny and very fitting for that to happen. Leonard Fournette intends to sign before week 1. He last played with Tampa. Um, no, he didn't. That's not true. He last played. Didn't he play with Buffalo last year? I see. I don't have my notes. I should have known this beforehand. That's on me. I apologize for that. Um, I don't know why Buffalo comes to mind, but I know he consistently played with Tampa Bay. Um, before that, he was with the Jags. There are plenty of teams that need running backs, and I think he will get signed before week 1 with injuries, and this goes for a lot of other players. You have Justin Simmons is still available. How is he still available? How is Justin Simmons still available? That makes absolutely no sense. Gilmore's still available. No sense. That makes no sense to me. The fact that these guys are available, I don't get it. And I couldn't even tell you where they would go. And I don't know if it's because they want more money, or if it's because teams think they're too old or they don't need them. I don't know why, but I don't know how half these players aren't signed. Fournette kind of makes sense because he's taken a step back in his game. As a Giants fan, I love him. I think he'd be great. He's a perfect power back. He'd complement Singletary nicely. Um, I bet plenty of teams would like him. I genuinely speaking, I think a team like Minnesota could really use a guy like him. They have Aaron Jones, they have Ty Chandler, they have Ngwangwu, even though he's mainly a kick returner. They could use Leonard Fournette in a power back role. Look at what Detroit did with Gibbs and Montgomery. That was incredibly successful. If teams like Minnesota, teams like the Giants, they're able to implement Fournette into a game plan, that can make him really valuable. I think it makes complete sense for him to go to a team where he plays like an AJ Dillon type role. That would make sense to me. Um, will he? I don't know. I don't know if he wants to be the star back. I don't know if he has like an Antonio Brown mindset, but we'll see how that happens. I believe he's ready to play again, and I don't blame him. I mean, he was really good when he was on the field. Cam Sutton was suspended for 8 games. This is related to, I believe, what I saw was domestic battery when he was with Detroit. He 8 games without pay. He's currently with the Steelers. He's had a 1 or 2 year deal with them, if I remember right. So that's a blow for Pittsburgh. But I think they always find a way. It doesn't matter. I mean, they can start 0-8. They'll end up 9-8 and somehow make the playoffs because they always do, right? They always do. So that'll. I don't think it impacts them that much because they're usually more of a defensive front. They're more of a front 7 team than a secondary team. Anyways, so I don't think this is a massive this does not change the season. Okay, this does not make Pittsburgh a playoff team or not a playoff team. It doesn't really change their season. They always end up 10-7 or 9-8 around that range, and then they make the playoffs, but they get wiped in the first round. That's what happens that's what happens every year. So yeah. Last news. This is very, very happy news for the football community. EA Sports is dropping CFB 25 on July 19th. Now, if you pre-ordered it, you get it tomorrow, I believe, if I remember right. Tomorrow at 4 p.m. is when it first drops for pre-orders. I know this game, based on gameplay I've seen, it's significantly different from Madden. You have your there's what's it called, road. I've never played CFB, so I think there's Road to Glory, if I remember right, where you kind of like work your way through college and you try to make it to the NFL. Um, I believe Ultimate Team is new to CFB, to the CFB series as well. I don't think that they've ever done something like this before, and I think that's interesting. And based on what I've seen from uh, usually EA has like pay to win games. That's how it always is. Madden's always pay to win with MUT. I don't know if that's going to be the case for CFB. It probably is, but we'll see when content creators start to upload about it, and that'll definitely be interesting to see. Based on what I know a couple of recent college football stars are going to be in MUT. I think Mahomes is going to be in it. I believe Lamar's going to be in it. Joey Bosa. Those are three names I remember off the top of my head. So be on the lookout for that. All right. That is how I'm going to end the show today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like, comment what videos you want to see next, and make sure you follow the IG, subscribe right here, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday when I upload my 5 fantasy players to avoid. See you then.